Talofa lava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
It's like asking the cow to jump over the moon. It's very hard for them to come out openly.
Fiji abuse survivor urges Pope Leo to do better. Also, PNG declares polio outbreak and...
we haven't been in this position before, and as navigators, we're going into uncharted areas that we've never been before.
Pacific Rugby fans are all smiles. It's been almost 2 weeks since Pope Leo XIV was announced as the new pontiff. But while the dust is beginning to settle and Catholics from all around the world have embraced the Pope, the survivors of those abused by priests are seeking accountability, calling on Pope Leo to adopt a zero-tolerance policy and for the Church to investigate his handling of prior sexual abuse allegations. One of them is Felix Fremlin from Fiji, who was abused at 7 years old by a New Zealand Marist brother at Marist Brothers Primary School in Suva. Years later, Felix received a written apology and financial compensation from the Marist brothers. But it's not enough. I spoke to Felix and began by asking him for his thoughts on Pope Leo.
Oh, this new Pope, I'm not too really happy with him.
Why are you not happy with him?
This new Pope is not really, he had some allegations of cover-up previously. It was known beforehand, before he became a Pope. So this new Pope, what you call this? He concealed sex abuse on 3 Peruvian women. Sorry, so it was obviously known beforehand, and then that's the same principle to with the previous Pope. They had some sort of allegations of cover-up.
Before we go on about Pope Leo, even though there was a written, as I understand, even though there was a written apology from Brother John Hazelman and you received financial compensation for your case, how are you coping mentally?
Here in Fiji, we don't have a specialist that we can go to. Because, I can give you just a simple brief outline of Fiji. You coming out, it's a Pacific Island thing. Everybody looks upon the church as messengers of God. So, and for people to talk about it, it's a taboo thing that you actually go against the church, So here we don't have specialists where survivors can go to for counseling. It's the church here has offered counseling, but the counselors here belong to the church itself. So when you go for counseling, your report is back to the church.
So what are you hoping the church could do to address the struggles?
The church in Fiji, or is it in the church in Fiji?
Well, the Vatican, really.
Vatican, I prefer that they have zero tolerance on any abuse, and come out in a transparent manner with any any abuse that or allegations that comes out. They're sort of covering it up. They don't tell people what's going on till we find out our own self, from the other survivors, which is a good thing. Being a church, you looking after your family members, your congregation, and it's the same thing with being a father. You're looking after your family at home, so you need to be looking after the best interest of the family.
I know that you've mentioned earlier before in our talanoa that you're not happy with this new Pope, but will you still be seeking an apology from him?
Yes, I've got nothing to lose, so the only option is just to ask for an apology, which the Royal Commission in New Zealand, when the report came out, they asked for an apology from the Pope, which is still forthcoming, and I think SNAP, New Zealand and Australia have written a letter, an open letter, seeking an apology.
If there was an apology or redress from the Vatican, will that in any way restore your faith in the church?
In some sense, yes, just to show that they're actually doing something for the survivors. But, it's like asking the cow to jump over the moon. It's very hard for them to come out openly. It's been in the previous Pope that haven't done anything concrete. We're just hoping for something concrete, written in black and white that states, they're doing something about it.
When you say something concrete, are you talking financial compensation or?
No, it's the law for the church that they any complaint comes in or any allegation that they report and come out publicly. It's the canon law, from what I know. I'm still learning about this thing.
Before I let you go, what's your message to Pope Leo? If he were to stand right in front of you, what would you say to him?
Well, I'd tell the Pope if he can take concrete steps so that make sure there's zero tolerance of abuse in the church. And to always with the survivors, when survivors try to seek redress or converse with the church gives them the runaround. And always the lawyers, my experience in Fiji, is that they bring up the lawyers and then they hide behind lawyers, So I wish the Pope would come up and it's just something that he puts into law that the survivors can go to without the church giving them the runaround.
Papua New Guinea's Acting Deputy Secretary for Public Health is appealing to parents to get their young children vaccinated against polio. The World Health Organization has declared a polio outbreak in the country and called for an immediate vaccination campaign. Muratule Patela compiled this report.
The declaration follows environmental sampling that showed re-emergence of the highly infectious virus. The Papua New Guinea government's planned response includes at least 2 rounds of nationwide vaccination and expanding monitoring to detect any further cases. It has approved 13 million kina for the vaccine rollout. Acting Deputy Secretary for Public Health, Ken Wai, is appealing to parents to work with health authorities and protect their children.
So we appeal to all our mothers, all our fathers, take our young people to the nearest clinic. When they are coming around, make sure, but prevention and protection is for their lifetime.
The WHO's PNG representative, Sevo Hosinova, says all children up to the age of 10 should be vaccinated.
Why? Because if you don't vaccinate your child, your neighbor will vaccinate the child. There is a cross-contamination. You have to make sure it is entire community gets together, entire community makes sure all children are vaccinated.
Papua New Guinea was said to be polio-free since 2000 until an outbreak in 2018, which was contained within the same year. UNICEF's representative in PNG says it's working with the government on a strong communication strategy to avoid any misinformation around its polio response plan. Vera Mendotha says media play a critical role in getting trusted messages out.
Make sure that you prevent the spread of misinformation. You have to debunk harmful myths because, as the Secretary mentioned, as the Minister, as several mentioned, vaccines are safe. Immunization is critical to protect all our children.
New Zealand's Prime Minister says the country is ready to help Papua New Guinea if needed as the Pacific nation faces a polio outbreak. Christopher Luxon says the government is keeping a close watch on the situation.
Prime Minister Marape is a good friend of ours. He knows to reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help, as we've done before. As you saw with the landslides, we're there to help Papua New Guinea in any way we can. And so we're there to help Papua New Guinea, but I think the lesson for all New Zealanders is get your children immunised.
Christopher Luxon says there's been no formal request for assistance yet.
A social worker has spoken of children as young as 6 years old being adopted from abroad and held in slavery, working from dawn to dusk and being assaulted. Some escape and get the help they need to rebuild their lives, but there are fears many others are still being held behind closed doors. Jill Bonnet reports.
Chris Teikamata worked for a community social agency from 2019 to 2024 and helped 10 Samoan teenagers from Auckland and Wellington who had managed to escape their homes, beatings and slavery. In one case, a church minister raped his adoptive daughter and got her pregnant.
They're incredibly traumatised because it's years and years and years of physical abuse, physical labour, and a lot of the time sexual abuse.
They couldn't play with friends, call their families, and all of their movements were controlled.
They would have to get up 5, 6 in the morning, start cleaning, start breakfast, then go to school, and then after school again do cleaning and dinner and the chores, and do that every day until a certain age, until they were workable. Then they were sent out to factories in Auckland or Wellington, and their bank account was taken away from them and their FPOS card, and from the age of 16 they were put to work.
They didn't get their pay packet. Instead, $20 or $30 for working a 40 to 50-hour week.
The ones that I met had escaped and found a friend, or were homeless, or had reached out to the police. Yeah.
Do you fear that there are those that don't?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of them.
Chris Kamata says while only a fraction are being enslaved, about 1,000 children are adopted from Samoa each year. When the 8 girls and 2 boys she worked with were reunited with their birth parents on video calls, it was clear they came from loving families. She says they were deceived by promises their children would have an education, New Zealand citizenship and a better life. Oranga Tamariki had taken much younger children into care when they were discovered in house slave conditions. Adoption reform advocate Anne Els says New Zealand welfare agencies can't carry out upfront checks because they don't know about the children. She says there's no legal role for any government agency in adoptions already approved in some Pacific islands.
Oranga Tamariki are trying, I know, to work with, for example, Tonga, so to try and make sure that their law is a bit more conformant with ours and there are more checks done and so on to avoid these exploitative cases.
Problems with the adoption law here have been known about for decades. Anne Els says they've been on the brink of change before, only for it to be kicked down the road for another generation.
The entire law needs to be redone. It dates back to 1955, for goodness sake. But there's a big difference between understanding how badly and urgently the law needs changing and actually getting it done.
A recent briefing to ministers reiterated that New Zealanders with criminal histories or significant child welfare records have used overseas courts to approve adoptions, which were recognised under the law here without any further checks. The Immigration Minister, Erica Stanford, says her colleagues are looking at what can be done to crack down on trafficking via international adoption.
If there are non-genuine adoptions and potential trafficking, we need to get on top of that. It falls outside of the legislation that I'm responsible for, but there are other ministers who have it on their radars because we're all worried about it. I've read a recent report on it and it was pretty horrifying, so it is being looked at.
Advocates say adoption, immigration and criminal law must change and agencies must start prosecuting offenders for trafficking.
What a weekend it was for the 2 Pacifica Super Rugby teams who recorded good wins for their fans on Saturday. The Fijian draw finally had their fans smiling in Lautoka after they dished out a big 38-7 win over the Western Force. The Fijian draw finally had their fans smiling in Lautoka after they dished out a big 38-7 win over the Western Force. At the North Harbour Stadium, RNZ and the Moana Pacifica continued creating their own history, handing the Blues a 27-21 hiding in front of 12,000 fans. Speaking to media after the game, RNZ says it was a proud moment.
I'm just proud, more so for the team, for the boys, for the franchise. We haven't been in this position before, and as navigators, we're going into uncharted areas that we've never been before, and it's kind of installing belief and a bit of faith within our team that they're just as good as some amazing teams in Super Rugby.
And joining me is our senior sports journalist Eliesa Tora, who followed the action and gives us his breakdown of the team's performances.
Hey, Pula Eliesa, great to see both the Ndrua and Moana Pacifica claiming wins at the weekend. What were some of the highlights of the Ndrua's performance and what does that mean for them?
Yes, Mula Binaka, and good day everyone listening in to this program today. The Fijian Ndrua really put on a great display last Saturday. It came in a little bit late for them in the season. Since it was their second last game of the competition for 2025, but their last and their last also at Churchill Park, a big 38-7 win over the Western Force in the round 14 clash. There were 2 big reasons the Drua needed that win. One was to basically repay the fans who have been faithful to them even during the performances that they put up in the season, not able to get into the top 6. The fans still turned up at Churchill Park. And the Ndrua management and team had also, asked the players to put on that show for the fans.
We also saw on Saturday Moana Pacifica fans witnessing your team claim their first win against the Blues. How did the side achieve that feat, and where does that place them in the competition?
Oh man, North Harbour Stadium was an exciting place to be on Saturday. I was up there to witness the game, and Moana Pacifica hung on, and they won 27-21. The very first time they beat the Blues in the Super Rugby Pacific series, and that win adds on to the victories that they had recorded over the Crusaders, Hurricanes, and the Highlanders earlier in the competition. The win also gave them a jump into the top 6. So they displaced the Blues on the points table. Now they are at 6, and with 2 games still to go, which basically means that their chance of securing a top 6 finish in the final round is still very much alive. They were they put on a show that the 12,000 odd fans that turned up and packed the North Harbour Stadium would have been really proud of.
Now, earlier today, it was announced that Moana Pacifica captain Adi Savea was crowned the 2025 Super Rugby Pacific player. What are your thoughts on his performance, and why did Savea deserve the award?
Yes, very big news for Moana Pacifica, and I think Pacifica Rugby in general, with the 31-year-old Moana Pacifica captain getting the award the very first time that Super Rugby has given that out. The award is voted for by the coaches and captains of the 11 teams that are in the competition, and Savea collected the total of 6, the maximum 6 votes against the Blues, and recorded a total of 42 votes altogether from the competition so far. The interesting thing is there are still 2 more games to go in the competition, but he's already been given the award because the gap in between him and the Brumby Storm Hooper, who is on 31 votes, and the Chiefs Damien McKenzie is big, and that just shows that he has been really a favorite.
Well, it seems that Adi Savea's performance has certainly sparked up Super Rugby, because there were some concerns earlier in the year that the franchise is dying a natural death because fans seem to be staying away. What's been happening, and is there hope for the series and the game as a whole?
Yes, definitely. We only have to look back at how the competition has rolled out this year. First of all, on the field, the competition has been very close, very tight, and with the challenge, the fight, the battle for the top 6, this has kept the teams on their toes. And you have a team winning this week, and they're losing out next weekend because the opposing team, has prepared well, has gotten better. Off the field, the fans have turned up. Moana Pacifica, Fiji Ndrua, playing at home in Lautoka or away in Sydney or in Brisbane, or even around here in Dunedin or in Hamilton, in Napier. They've brought in the crowd. And this is something that Savea had pointed to. This is something that Whalamatana Umanga had pointed to in previous conversations, that there is hope for the Super Rugby Pacific competition and for rugby in general in New Zealand, because the standard seems to have lifted on the field, and off the field, the fans are coming in.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā sui fua.